The year is 1423. The sun hangs like a hammer over the valley of the river Yonne, baking the clay and turning the air into a shimmering haze. On the west bank, 4,000 men stand in silence. They are sweating inside casings of steel, their breathing shallow, their eyes fixed on the far side of the water. They are a mixture of English archers and Burgundian knights, the last fragile shield of a divided kingdom. Across the river, the view is terrifying. A massive army, estimated by the terrified scouts at 15,000 strong, darkens the horizon. It is a wall of spears and banners, a joint force of French loyalists and Scottish mercenaries who have come to crush the Anglo-Burgundian alliance into the dust. The odds are impossible. 1 man against 3, a suicide mission. And yet, before the sun sets on this scorching July day, this small, desperate force will not just survive. They will orchestrate a slaughter so complete it will turn the river red and save a kingdom from collapse. The English commander, Thomas Montagu, the Earl of Salisbury, wipes the sweat from his eyes and snaps his visor shut. He knows the stories of Agincourt, but Agincourt is a memory. This is a trap. He does not give a speech about glory. He gives a command to move. His men, the dust rising from their sabatons, begin a rapid, disciplined march along the riverbank. They are not retreating. They are hunting for a crossing. Salisbury knows that standing still is death. He micromanages the formation as they move, placing his archers on the wings, a lesson burned into him during the long, brutal campaigns of Henry V. Every second they march, the massive enemy host on the opposite bank matches them, a predator stalking its prey from across the water. The march halts at the bridge of Cravant. The heat is now a physical enemy, a suffocating blanket that raises the temperature inside the knight's plate armor to over 120 degrees. Men are fainting without being touched, their bodies failing in the solar furnace, but they hold their lines. Across the narrow strip of water, the Franco Scottish army stops and jeers. They hold the high ground. They hold the bridge. They have the numbers. From their vantage point, the Scottish commanders, hard men who have traveled 1,000 miles to kill Englishmen, look down at the puny relief force and smile. They don't need to attack. They just need to wait for the heat and thirst to break the English discipline. The silence stretches. 1 hour, then 2, then 3. It is a standoff of agonizing tension. The only sound is the lazy flow of the river Yonne, its waters unseasonably low from the summer drought, revealing slick, muddy banks and jagged stones. The English archers plant their stakes in the mud, checking their bowstrings for tension in the dry air. They can see the faces of the Scots across the water, men wearing mail and padded jacks, armed with axes and hate. Behind the English lines, the Burgundian gunners sponge out their cannons, the heat waves distorting the air above the iron barrels. This is the psychological breaking point. In ancient battles, the mind often fails before the body. The temptation to break formation, to rush the water or flee the field is overwhelming. But Salisbury sits motionless on his horse, a statue of iron and will. He is waiting for the perfect moment, the single heartbeat where the enemy's confidence turns into complacency. He sees it, a ripple of movement in the Scottish lines, a slight lowering of shields, the subtle body language of men who believe the day is already won by default. Salisbury raises his mace. The signal is given. The silence of the valley is shattered not by a war cry but by thunder. 40 Burgundian veuglaires, primitive breech-loading cannons, erupt in unison. Smoke billows across the water, carrying the smell of sulfur and death. Stone and iron balls tear through the tightly packed Scottish formations on the far bank, smashing limbs and shattering shields. Before the smoke clears, the sky darkens. The English longbowmen step forward, draw their yew bows to the ear, and loose. The arrow storm hits the enemy with the sound of torrential rain on a tin roof. It is a rhythmic, mechanical slaughter. The Scottish infantry, packed deep to block the crossing, cannot miss the falling shafts. Men go down in heaps, pinned to the earth. The disciplined hedge of spears begins to fray. This is the moment. Salisbury roars the order, "St. George, banners advance!" The English men-at-arms do not run for the bridge. They run for the water. Splash, splash. They plunge into the Yonne, the water rising to their waists, the current tugging at their armored legs. It is a slow nightmare wade into the teeth of the enemy. To the right, Lord Willoughby leads a suicide squad directly onto the narrow stone bridge. It is a bottleneck of horror. The Scots on the bridge brace their pikes, turning the narrow causeway into a wall of steel points. The two sides collide with a sickening crunch of metal on metal. There is no room to swing a sword, no room to dodge. Men stab and gouge with daggers, grappling in the crush, tumbling over the low parapets to drown in the water below. The bridge becomes a cork, stopping the rage of two armies. But Willoughby pushes. He uses the bodies of the fallen as steps, his men grinding forward inch by bloody inch, their breath rasping in their throats, their vision tunneled to the enemy directly in front of their face. In the river, the main English force is halfway across. The water around them is frothing, whipped by enemy crossbow bolts and the desperate thrashing of the wounded. But the English archers do something extraordinary. They don't stay on the bank. They sling their bows and draw swords and axes, wading into the river alongside the knights. They are lighter, faster. They swarm up the muddy banks like stinging insects, ducking under the clumsy swings of the heavy Scottish axes, hammering at knees and visor slits. The Franco Scottish line tries to hold the bank, but they are disoriented by the artillery and riddled with arrows. Now they face an enemy that seems to rise out of the river itself. The melee on the east bank is a chaotic swirl of violence. The constable of the Scottish army, Sir John Stuart, is in the thick of it. He fights with the desperation of a man who sees his destiny crumbling. A lance strike takes his eye, blood masking his face, but he refuses to yield. The Scots are famous for their stubbornness, and they form their schiltrons, circular formations of spears bristling like hedgehogs. They are holding. The English push is stalling. The sheer weight of the 15,000 is beginning to tell, pressing the 4,000 back towards the water. The river threatens to become a grave for the entire English army. But the battle has a third player. High on the walls of the besieged town of Cravant, the Burgundian captain, Lord de Chastellux, has been watching. He sees the English struggling in the mud. He sees the Scottish line fully committed to the riverbank. Their backs are turned to the town they are besieging. He sees the exposed rear of the enemy army. He knows this is the gamble of his life. He shouts the order. The chains rattle. The drawbridge of Cravant slams down. The gates groan open. Like a thunderbolt, the garrison of Cravant surges out. They are fresh, angry, and mounted. They hit the rear of the Franco-Scottish line with the force of a freight train. The sound of the impact, horses slamming into infantry, lances shattering, men screaming, echoes off the city walls. It is the classic hammer and anvil. Salisbury's men in the river are the anvil. The garrison is the hammer. The enemy army is smashed between them. Panic is instantaneous. The French mercenaries, seeing they are surrounded, break immediately. They throw down their crossbows and pavises, scrambling over each other to escape the killing zone. The formation disintegrates into a mob. But the Scots do not run. Whether trapped by their position near the bridge or bound by a code of honor that forbids retreating before the English, they stand their ground. It is a fatal mistake. The Allied circle closes around them. The Ordinance of Auxerre, the pre-battle order given to the English troops, was clear. Take no prisoners until the victory is total. The riverbank becomes an abattoir. The English men-at-arms, fueled by the terror of the crossing and the heat of the day, show no mercy. They hack into the confused clusters of Scottish infantry. The water of the Yonne, already low, turns opaque with silt and blood. The Scots fight back to back, slipping on the gore, their axes rising and falling until they are overwhelmed by sheer numbers. It is not a battle anymore, it is an execution. Sir John Stuart is dragged down, captured, his one good eye witnessing the destruction of his army. The Earl of Buchan is taken. The field is littered with the flower of the Scottish nobility, lying broken in the mud of a foreign land. As evening falls, the noise of battle fades, replaced by the groans of the dying and the carrion calls of crows gathering in the trees. The English and Burgundians stand amidst the carnage, chests heaving, armor dented and bloodied. They look at the river, choked with bodies. They have lost perhaps 400 men. The enemy has lost thousands. The Grand Army of the Dauphin, the force that was supposed to drive the English into the sea, has effectively ceased to exist. The sun sets on a changed world. The victory at Cravant does more than save a town. It cements the alliance between England and Burgundy, the dual monarchy that now holds France in an iron grip. It proves that discipline and tactical audacity can shatter overwhelming numerical superiority. For the Scots, it is a tragedy that will be sung in mournful ballads for 100 years. The Battle of Cravant teaches us that terrain, timing, and the courage to seize a fleeting opportunity are worth more than 10,000 extra spears. If you want to see more stories of impossible victories and forgotten battles, make sure to like and subscribe. Until next time.